and welcome. My guest today is Kyle Van Deusen, founder of Ogal Web Design and the Admin Bar, which is the #1 community for WordPress professionals. Currently with over 7,000 members. Well done. That's probably an out-of-date figure at this point. I should imagine. Yeah. How many is it?
12,000, I think, in the group, something like that.
12,000 members. That is huge. Well done. My goodness. Kyle's sweet spot is working with marketing heads, web professionals, and tech companies, specifically those that have products or services aimed at WordPress users. The unique combination of experience has led to work with the likes of Termageddon, the world's leading privacy policy generator, and people like Yoast SEO, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Yoast, if I'm mispronouncing that, I do apologize. Who is founder of Yoast SEO. Outside of work, Kyle is a proud dad of 3 amazing kids and husband to a talented therapist with a private counseling clinic. In his spare time, he enjoys a good taco and pickling vegetables. Kyle, how are you?
I am doing excellent. It's nice to hear you say all those wonderful things. I'm trying to reconcile if they're actually true or not, but we'll find out through the course of this. You know, we'll see if that's just all marketing fluff or you're full of crap or not.
Are you saying that you don't enjoy tacos and pickling vegetables?
No, those 2 things are absolutely true, for sure. I mean, I got a hoodie on with a taco right now, and I will probably have tacos for lunch today. So that one's 100% accurate.
There we go. See, all good, all good. So we will just dive straight in. How did you get into this life? Entrepreneurship, agency, branding, writing, WordPress communities. How did you get into it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, hindsight is so helpful, depending on how far back we go here. But I've worked for a long time in sign shops, doing print work, that kind of thing. I worked in that industry for like 15 years. My wife ended up starting her own private practice, and I got to kind of see like, oh, you could start your own business and set your own schedule and do the things you want. And in the meantime, I was really hating life being an employee. I felt like I was doing most of the work for the business and trying to keep my boss in line with things. Like, kind of felt like I was running the thing, and got the sense that I could do this better, which I'm sure is what every cocky young person thinks. Turned out I think I can do it better than he could, but ended up finding web design kind of through a connection. Somebody asked me, you know, if you're a computer person, they ask you to do everything from fix the printer to make a website for us. They think it's kind of all the same thing. But I had a nonprofit that I was friendly with, and they asked me to fix some things on their website. I'm like, I'm sure I can figure this out. So ended up doing that, really liking it, realizing that going in business for myself in the print industry was way too expensive and probably not what I really wanted, and kind of found the path of web design and translated some of those skills that I'd built up doing graphic design and all marketing stuff for clients, and started building out my agency. I set out, I think, the beginning of January 2017, I thought that, you know, if I could build up enough to replace my current salary with agency work over the course of a year, that would be enough to jump ship. I was so motivated that about 5 or 6 months later, I had completely done that and put in my 2 weeks notice, and I was done at that point. So jumped ship pretty quick and haven't looked back yet. It's turned out to be, you know, the best decision I've made for my career for sure. Through fulfillment, enjoyment, the impact I'm able to make, the salary I've been able to create for myself that would have never been available working as a 9-to-5 employee. So it's been an awesome decision. But I look back at so many things, like early in my life, I used to write articles and send them into fantasy football magazines thinking I would get published. You know, I found business cards where I made for myself thinking I would be a sport agent when I was a little kid, you know, like for famous athletes. And then what I ended up doing was actually designing business cards, you know. So there's all these little things along the path that probably should have stood out as like, oh, this is something you're really interested in. But it took me a long time to actually figure that out.
Fantastic. I love that. I never knew that about you. That's so cool. I love that. Just a little business card. I love it. That's so sweet. My goodness. And do you know what? It's funny, kind of the amount of us that kind of just fall into this as work and just end up, you know, kind of having an agency, whether it's one person or one person contractors or a team or whatever. It's like, never imagined, you know, owning an agency, but here we are, and love being your own boss. And, you know, you get to set your own wages, which I think is one of the finer things in life, rather than, you know, working your butt off to buy somebody else a new car.
Absolutely. And you can't tell right now, but I am wearing pajama pants, and this is my work uniform.
I love it. I absolutely love
We'll
it.
save the outtakes. I'll stand up and you can see them. I think they're Christmas themed still, even though we're in
The
January.
Christmas thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. I was kind of expecting you to be like, "Oh yeah, no, it's got dogs on, or it's got like just gherkins or something." But no, Christmas. We'll run with
Why not?
that. Oh, wonderful. So you're your own boss. You get to set your own hours. What does your average day look like?
Well, I am an early riser. So when we first had our first child, we kind of split up the night shift. My wife would stay up late, and then I'd get up super early in the morning to take over feedings or whatever that might be. And it just kind of stuck. So I'm usually up between 4 and 5 in the morning. Just when I wake up, it's not an alarm or anything like that. So I start pretty early. I have both the agency work that I do and the admin bar. So there's lots of stuff to do between those things. So try to figure out the day from there. Been better about taking a little bit of lunch break in the middle of the day. But then by the time 3 o'clock or so rolls around, kids start coming home from school, got to do pickups and drop offs and all those kinds of things. So I'm usually done around then, even if I might sneak back down here for a little bit. But pretty long days, I would say. But not that I'm being forced to do it. I really do enjoy doing it. So even on the weekends, I'll find myself sneaking down here and doing a little bit of work just because it's something I'm interested in or excited about doing.
I love that about you because I think that it says a lot when, you're getting up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday morning because you want to and you just enjoy what you're doing so much. That's huge for a lot of people that struggling to roll out bed at 10 a.m. And,
I, I mean, I remember when I had my full-time job and there was a lot of things going wrong at that place. So it wasn't just being employed. It was actually the like abusive, horrible situation I was in. But I mean, I would wake up every morning just dreading to get out of bed and having to do this again. And it's like anything I could think of as an excuse to not have to go, I would try to do. And,
mm,
the feeling now of just waking up and being like, all right, let's get down there and get some stuff done. It's irreplaceable.
absolutely. And I think even when things get tough, kind of for anyone listening out there, it's just like you're still your own boss and you're
Mhm.
still in charge of what's going on and you get to choose what you do and when you do it and yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of freedom in that for sure. So entrepreneurship life is not for everyone, but for those it suits, it really suits.
Yeah, I'm unemployable at this point. So this has got to work out or I'll have to figure out something else. I'll be pressure washing or, cleaning cars or doing something because I don't think I could ever go back to having a real job at this point. I don't think it would be good for me and I don't think it would be good for whoever hired me. So hopefully this isn't out there one day I'm trying to get hired and they find this, but I don't think I'd be a good employee anymore.
Same here. Yeah, I was chatting to my project manager Riley the other day, and I said, I'm just so used to, oh, if I want to pop out for a couple of hours in the middle of the day, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And it's try explaining that to a boss, oh
Yeah.
no, I just felt like leaving for a couple of hours. Okay, wonderful. So we've covered like the good stuff about being your own boss and having an agency and having the community. Um, what do you find the hardest part about being the face of the admin bar?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. So some of the administrative stuff is not fun, right? So there's a lot of like I kind of file it all in the babysitting category, like so and so spouting off, and I got to moderate this, or these people are arguing and I have to fix it. So there's a lot of things like that are just not my forte. I have very little patience for immaturity and things like that. So those things are not my favorite thing. I would say also too, like I put so much pressure on myself to get as much done as possible, and like it's not that I don't like, that I'm afraid of saying no to people. I actually don't have much problem saying no to people, but I want to take on as much as possible. And I completely bury myself in work. And I come up for air one morning, to pull back the curtain. This morning is one of those mornings where I'm like, holy crap, I have done way too much. I've, put myself out there on too many projects at one time and it's overwhelming. And I kind of create these holes for myself that I have to dig out of. So I definitely put that pressure on myself and do it to myself, but it's one of those lessons that's just been like, feels impossible to completely learn. I get better and better at it over time, but definitely not out of it. So that's one of the things. It's just like when you, even when you're off work, when you're a business owner, you're still kind of on, you're still thinking about it. You're still, you can turn the notifications off your phone, but you can't turn them off in your brain. So you're still thinking about it. And, it does consume your life a lot more than when you clock out of work and you leave and you never think about, you don't think about it again until you show up the next day. That's not the life you live when you're an entrepreneur and when you're running your own business. So I think those kinds of things are, stuff I'm still working through and probably will always be working through.
I don't think you're alone in that at all. Yeah, 100%. Like I found myself even, when you're on holiday or vacation for our American viewers, you do still check in mentally and sneakily check the inbox and make sure that nothing is on fire and the world isn't ending business wise. And I think that's human. I think when you're responsible for so much stuff, just the idea of being unavailable for a couple of days is like, okay, what mess am I going to face when I get back?
Mm.
I think that's absolutely human. But I will say this, kind of the admin bar, that's a job in itself, and then running the agency is a job in itself, and I'm sure you've got 1,001 other things going on and different projects and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, you're a busy man, and there's only so many hours in the day. But yeah, a part of me feels like you enjoy that as well, though. You
Yeah,
enjoy
no, I
being busy.
do. I am terrible at relaxing and chilling. We go on vacation. I still get up at 4 a.m. I'm like, let's go find something to do. I'll go walk around the neighborhood wherever we're staying at 5 o'clock in the morning because I cannot just sit on the beach and relax. It's not my thing. I am pretty much in motion all the time. So a lot of that's just personality.
Okay, so let's talk about the admin bar. Will we talk about the admin bar? Because we do have Ogal Web, and I'm a big fan of the copywriting on Ogal Web, but I know that you are your harshest critic, and it's been a while since you last revisited it. But I absolutely love the about page on there. I think it's very, very good at kind of showcasing the man behind the brand, which is a huge part of personal branding, but also bringing the personal into the commercial as well. But yeah, and I'm not going to dwell on this too long. We will move on to the admin bar. I do like, which is a huge bugbear for a lot of people looking for quotations from agencies, that you can give them an instant quote. Well, not an instant 100%, covers
Yeah.
everything, but a ballpark figure. But like the instant you land, there's a little kind of Kyle face that pops up and says, do you want, instant idea of how much it will cost you? And I just feel like that cuts through half of the bull crap that many sites make you stroll through just to get to, can I afford you or not?
Yeah, that's been an interesting one. So I've played around with so much different, like, how do I handle the pricing question on my website? And a lot of experiments into it, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to come to you having no idea what it costs. And in our industry, sometimes you're going to get a quote for $1,000 and sometimes you're going to get a quote for $30,000. And it might be the same project as just two different agencies and how they work, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a hard sticking point for clients, like just knowing if we're in the ballpark or not. Because I have the admin bar, and that, that's probably 75% of my day, and the agency is 25%. That affords me to be a little bit picky with what I take on. So I think the pricing thing, when you give clients an idea of pricing up front, it can scare people away. And sometimes it scares people away that maybe would have paid that price, but they needed a little bit of education first. So trying to find that balancing act is really hard, because you don't want to get on calls constantly with people that think it's going to cost $500. It's a waste of everybody's time. It's not doing them a service. It's wasting my time. So try to avoid that much as possible. But I just want to get people some kind of idea. Does this make sense for us to even talk? So the little thing I've put together for the price estimation, it asks them, 3 or 4 simple questions and just gives them a range. Like, based on what you're saying here, if it has e-commerce and membership and all that, well, it's going to be more expensive. And if it's, just a simple brochure site, it's going to be on the lower side. And I give them a little bit of a range to go from there, just so they can see, does it make sense for us to continue this conversation? So I don't know yet. That's probably been on the site for 6 months or so, I'm guessing. I have a lot of people use it because I've just set up tracking on how many times that form is submitted. It doesn't force anybody to put in their contact information or anything like that, because I feel like that was another barrier of entry. So I can see that it's being submitted several times every day. I found a few people that I can kind of figure out they were probably this submission and now they've contacted me. But it's hard to know for sure how well that funnel, if you want to call it a funnel, is working. But it does make me feel a little bit better that at least they have some kind of idea if they end up contacting me. I would say most people are probably going to click that button and find out before they contact me. So I don't spend a lot of time on calls with people who are completely unqualified at this point, which is a good, measuring stick for how well it's working, even though I don't have all the science and data to back that up.
I think that's good. And I think it's very, I'm going to be very cringy now. I think it's very on brand for you because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I'm not going to force you to put in your contact details because, if it ain't a good fit, then let's not, waste each other's time. And, you just want answers. And I'm going to give them to you without any, kind of hang ups around it. So yeah, I like it. I do like it. So we've talked like very briefly about Ogal, so maybe 25% of the podcast because 75% of your time is spent on the admin bar, which is your baby. So we'll just deep dive into that.
Perfect. Love it.
Tell me a little bit about the brand identity because you've done a lot of work around the admin bar. You're very it's highly curated. The membership and the approach of the admin bar is very much intentional. How did you make those decisions?
That's a great question. I wish I could tell you I had like a grand master plan and it's been followed to perfect execution and I've really achieved it. But like everybody's story, it's been organic and changed over time. It kind of started back in the day. I through happenstance connected with another WordPress web developer. I didn't have any real connections in that world. I was just kind of doing it on my own. It was the first year in business. We hit it off. We kind of subcontracted some projects together, but we hit it off and we started talking more about our own businesses. We were in similar places. So we just started talking about more of the ins and outs of actually running our business. And what we realized is the more we talked about that with somebody, the better the trajectory was for our own businesses because we were helping each other out with problems, saying, oh, this is how I solved this before, watch out for that. That's a giant red flag. I've had that happen to me before. So we got to learn a lot from each other's mistakes and stuff. And so the idea was, could this scale? What if we had 10 people instead of 2 people? Would we learn even more from that? So that's kind of how we started the community. And it was really just based around our own personalities. Really, there was no brand identity other than we did give it a name to have something to call it. But it was really just based around real people, right? Like, and that's been a theme that's kind of carried on as it's grown from 2 people to 10 people to 12,000 people which is still a bonkers number to say out loud. I grew up in a town with 2,000 people. So the fact that this is, 5 times the size of that or whatever the math is crazy. But really, I think there's a lot of communities and influencers and gurus and all this out there. And a lot of times the feeling I get in some of those communities is that there's like a person on the mountaintop that's preaching down to the people below. Right. And I don't feel comfortable in that space. That's not my kind of deal. So I've always kind of pictured the admin bar as us always being in the trenches together. Like we're all figuring this out. Some of us are further ahead in that journey than others. But everybody has so much stuff to give just from personal life experience and all that. So really the idea with the admin bar is like real people, which sounds kind of generic, but it's all of us doing this in the trenches together, not with a bunch of ego or, too much pride or taking ourselves too seriously. It's like, these are the kind of people I would want to hang out with if I could just design all my coworkers. These are the people I would want to hang out with that have similar things going on and we can learn from each other. And that's kind of the way we've tried to progress it. And like you said, being particular about who we let in. Facebook doesn't give you a lot of tools for that since the group is run on Facebook. Doesn't give you a lot of tools, but it gives you some that you can snuff out some of the people who you don't think are a good fit. And then we're quick to kick people out who don't kind of fall in line with the culture of the group. And those people make themselves known pretty quickly. So that becomes pretty easy. But what we find is a lot of people kind of figure out what the culture is. I don't have to set that, like the community does that on their own and kind of polices that. And people kind of adapt to that culture when they're in that space, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think it's very organic, but I just love how there's so many people from so many different countries. Like this isn't just US based. For anybody not familiar, there are people all over the globe part of the admin bar, and there's very much just a very laid back, friendly, open honest kind of vibe in the group. It's kind of like Carl said, there's no egos.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people helping each other out. And kind of it's great because nobody brings up politics. Nobody cares. It's just a bunch of people that enjoy doing what they're doing and helping each other out and sharing resources. And I really like that. And I think a big part of that is, obviously you're not on top of a mountain, but you are kind of behind the bar, and just gently, kind of keeping the drunkards, the
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming drunkards out. So just it's a good vibe. Everybody's
Yeah.
having fun, and everybody's helping each other.
Yeah. I think
And
part of it
yeah,
too is like none of us are afraid to expose some of our flaws or shortcomings. And I think injecting that into the culture, me doing that, I will post when I screw something up or don't know something, is part of it, but everybody kind of does that. And I think once you kind of bridge that and say like, hey, we're all making mistakes and we're all human and we're all trying to figure this out, everybody kind of relaxes a little bit because nobody's there to call you out or tell you you're dumb for not knowing something. Like, we're all kind of figuring this out. And I think the fact that we can kind of show our flaws or ask real questions that we're thinking about without feeling embarrassed about it is a huge part of why the community has kind of stayed that same vibe for as long as it has.
absolutely. Yeah. I think, kind of, obviously I've been a member of a lot of different, agency owner groups and, web designer groups, and, organizations and stuff. And, kind of with certain areas of what we do, kind of, you do have the bros, and, that is very, you absolutely cannot make a mistake with the bros. And it's all, oh, I'm making millions and this and that. But what I really like about the admin bar is everybody has their own goals and their own vision of what they want their business to look like. So it's not you have to have a team of 40 people, working 80-hour weeks. It's no, I'm a person just enjoying making beautiful websites, and that's enough for me. And then you do have people that are looking to scale and build and whatever, and then you have people that want to, make enough money so they can retire on a beautiful sunny beach. And it's just nice because everyone, no matter what their end goals are or what their agency looks like, is approaching it with the same kind of attitude. So I think
Yeah.
that's really unique.
I think the way I've looked at that is like, I try to not be prescriptive. I share a lot of my thoughts and ideas and what I'm doing, but I try to share it from an angle of like, let me just share with you what I'm doing or how I would approach this, but not telling you how you should do this, because how you should do this is completely different. You have a different personality and background and goals and all those things that you just mentioned, So I think there's a good understanding in the group if we kind of share what we're doing, but not necessarily being prescriptive of what everybody else should do. And I think, to me, that's a more comfortable environment to be around, right? Nobody likes being told necessarily what to do, but we love getting inspiration from other people, and hearing, different perspectives on things is certainly useful, but being told what to do doesn't feel great. So I definitely spend a lot of time editing myself, making sure I'm not saying, when I'm doing writing or things like that, making sure I'm not saying, here's what you should do, but here's what I do, And I do think sometimes that's a subtle difference in the way you phrase that. It's not as literal or direct as that, but I do think that makes a difference in how, messages are received when you're not being prescriptive and you're just sharing experiences more than anything.
Absolutely. There's no preachiness to it. It's just
Sure.
here's what I found, and it might help you, it might not, but this was my experience. Yeah, I think that's a good kind of overarching view of keeping the kind of the ethos of the group, kind of very very welcoming to everyone, really. So with a group of 12,000 and counting, you obviously need to come up with new things and new ideas and, new events, etc., etc. How do you keep creative when you've got such a huge group of very varied people to keep entertained, as it were?
Yeah. So a lot of it just stems from like, I have a problem and I need a solution to it. So what can we come up with together? Or what could I try out and see if it works for other people? I'll give you a clear example of that. So we all have to write proposals for projects. None of us really like doing it. Most of us feel like our proposals could be much better. you can go find templates and things, but if you go to proposal software's templates, they're all very corporate feeling, and like that's not the way I do my business, so it doesn't really fit for me. We could go to ChatGPT and have it write something, but again, that's going to be a little bit more generic and not how it would fit for me. I thought what I would like to do is see what everybody else's proposals look like, and then I could just pick and pull the pieces I like and say, ooh, I noticed this, and I don't like this, and whatever it may be. So in our Barfly community, which is kind of like a Patreon type group, like a paid subset of the community, we did something we called the proposal swap. And the idea was everybody submits a signed proposal. So it needs to be one that was actually accepted, because we don't want to see theory. We want to see what actually worked, what was successful, right? And when you submit your proposal, you then get access to everybody else's proposal who submitted their proposal. So it's kind of like your ticket to get into the proposal swap is submitting your own proposal. And so through that, there's over 100 of them in there, but it's awesome to be able to go in there and just see what does everybody else's proposals really look like. And that was a solution that I needed, and I knew everybody else could benefit from as well. So a lot of times I'll start the year with like, I need to make 4 new things for the admin bar this year. And it's just very hard for me to like sit down and script that out of how that might play out. And it's a lot more like, here's what I'm seeing. How can we solve this problem? So I spend a lot of time talking with agency owners in the group, more generally through our Barfly community, a little bit more intimately. We have a Slack group and things like that, and we meet once a month. So I see those people face to face and talk to them. And then through our mastermind groups, which we have 5 different groups, this is our table program, I meet with those folks. There's 8 in each group, 5 groups. I meet with each group an hour a week. So I'm spending 5 hours a week just, face to face talking with people through the challenges they're going through, what goals they're setting, all that. So I have a ton of inspiration coming in that's not just from my agency, but what's going on with everybody else as well. So crowdsourcing all of that is definitely a key to it.
Do you know what? And it's such an overlooked aspect of, for people that aren't in our space as well, of, kind of coming up with services and products for your target market, is ask them. Just ask them, kind of, you could be like, oh, I really want to sell this particular thing because it's got high profit margins, blah, 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 But until you actually dig in and be like, okay, how can I actually help these people? What do they actually struggle with? And how can I alleviate those problems? And the amount of things that come up outside of that as well, because of, like with the proposals, kind of there's an unspoken thing in the background of how much people are charging.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how long does it take them to do stuff? How do they even set out their services? Yeah, like it's I think it's fantastic that, kind of people can be so open and not be worried about people ripping off their ideas and taking their, their IP and stealing it and taking away their customers, but also the lack of judgment as well, which I think is really, really important, especially with, kind of whether it's developers or creatives or whatever, there's always that worry of what if everyone says that it's crap,
right?
Whereas there's never that. I've never seen, I may have seen a couple of people over the last, 6 years that we've been friends in the admin bar, and straight away ban Hammer. Because
for sure,
it just ain't flying. Okay, they're gone. So yeah, I think it's important that level of support as well.
Well, we put so many limitations on ourselves, like these self-imposed ceilings that don't actually exist, but we feel like they exist in our mind. And I think a huge unlock for people, and the proposal swap is a great example of this, is like just seeing what other people are doing makes it possible for you to do it. So you go back to the example of the 5-minute mile. Forever, and I might be screwing up this story, but you'll get the idea of it. Forever, they thought running a 5-minute mile was impossible. Humans could not do it. And then as soon as somebody did it, a couple weeks later, the next person did it. And all it really took was unlocking the idea that it was possible. And now a lot of people can do that, right? And I think, the proposal thing's a good example of that. It's like, well, I can't charge more than $2,000 for a website. My clients would say no, they would hate me. They would leave me a bad review. The whole world would crumble down if I did that. And then they go look through 100 proposals and see that the scope of work looks exactly like what they're doing, but the numbers on it are a lot higher. And it's like, okay, well, I guess maybe this can work. And then they try it and it works, So I think a lot of times we're just kind of like limiting ourselves and being able to see what's possible through other people, and kind of getting a lens into those situations is really, really helpful. I know it is for me too, because when you just see something's possible, it makes it possible for you. And the fact that we can provide that opportunity for more and more people, I think is super exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've touched upon proposals and the barflies and table as well. So we've got a bunch of different programs that people can join. You've also, and just from that, what would help me, what problems am I having, what would I like to solve? You know, you've got a few other different products, services that have done really well within the admin bar and beyond. So obviously, kind of we have the website owner manual, which is the WOM, as it's lovingly referred to, which is kind of like, oh, you've got a client who just wants to take their website and, you know, kind of deal with everything. Here's everything they need. And then it usually works out that they're like, that's a lot more than what I expected. Okay, I'll just pay you to take care of hosting and maintenance and stuff going forward. Um, what piece of content unexpectedly blew up for you? So what idea did you have that you were like, this is really good, but you didn't realize how good it was until it went live?
Well, I think the website owner's manual is a great exploration of this idea, because we actually, me and my original partner in the admin bar, Matt, we came up with this idea because we had clients saying no to care plans, not because a care plan wasn't a good thing, which is, if you're not familiar with care plans in WordPress, you have to do a lot of updates and upkeep of the website. A professional is probably going to be more equipped to do that than your average business owner. Not that it's rocket science, but it is a lot of work, right? And clients were saying no to it, not because they didn't need it, but because they didn't understand they needed it, right? They didn't realize everything that went into it. So the idea was, how do we solve this problem, right? How do we make sure that clients understand everything that goes into it? So we created a document where we fill in all the details, give them a list of all the tasks they need to do. This isn't made up stuff. It's really stuff that needs to be done. It just so happens that I can do it to 10 websites in the same amount of time it would take you to do it to just your own website. So the economies of scale actually work in your favor to hire somebody to do this rather than to do it yourself. Anyways, we came up with this idea. We started testing out on our own clients, and we realized right away that we had people signing up after they got the website owner's manual. The theory, came true, that people saw this and went, oh, I didn't realize there was that much that went into it. How much does that cost again? I might just hire you to do it. So when we realized that it was actually working in our agency, we kind of retooled it and packaged it up into something a little bit nicer. And we started offering it in the admin bar community as just a free download, like as a lead magnet. We shared our experience. Here's what happened. We got, 50 to 100 downloads, not very many, not that many people were interested in it. So we ended up taking it down. However, we were both still using it in our agency and it was still working. So we ended up several months later, retooling it again, putting a little bit better packaging on it, and then offering it for sale. And when we did that, all of a sudden we had tons of people buying it. So it took off immediately. I think in the first month it had like 1,000 sales. At that point, there were only a couple thousand people in the group. So it was a huge conversion rate on it, which was pretty amazing. So that took off. That was probably 5-6 years ago at this point. We still sell a couple copies every day, this much longer later. But that was one that we just had no idea would take off like it did. But it was interesting that the way we were packaging it made all the difference. When it was something free, people didn't think it was that valuable. And as soon as we put a price tag on it, all of a sudden people thought, oh, maybe this is worth checking out, and it's helped tons of people. We've gotten tons of great feedback on it. Anytime a question along the lines of that comes up in the group, 100 people respond, you need to use the website owner's manual, so that was definitely one that I could have never dreamed.
And those are fantastic results. They really are. Like even a few years later, to get a couple of sales, every day is really, really good. Okay. Well, I could stand here chatting to you all day, but I have a feeling that you're probably in demand and need to get on with the rest of your day. So we'll end on the last couple of questions that I have for you.
Awesome.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. I don't know exactly how it was phrased to me, but it's something that I try to think of a lot and I try to relay to a lot of people is like imperfect action. Taking a step is better than standing still. There's so many times that we get in our own way of like being indecisive or worried that we're making the wrong decision, but having momentum is so important. Even if that momentum is slightly in the wrong direction, you can always steer that ship into the right direction with some forward progress that you've already built up. But just starting from a standstill over and over again is really, really hard. So I'm very much a ready, fire, aim type person. And I think that's, it's bit me in the butt sometimes for sure. And I've made mistakes because of that, but it's also allowed me to do a whole lot of things that would have never happened otherwise. So I think just taking imperfect action and trusting yourself that you'll figure it out as you go, I think has been a huge one for me.
Absolutely. I think analysis paralysis kills a lot of fantastic ideas.
Yeah.
And, just taking action, even if it's small action, day on day on day is, the key to getting to exactly where you want to go, even if you don't know where that is right now. And if you could give one piece of advice to anyone starting a business, what would it be?
Oh, so many pieces of advice. I would say take all the finances seriously from the very beginning, even when the numbers are low. I've seen a lot of people through our communities and talking with people that kind of were just winging it and really intermingling personal and business and not having a good handle on all those things, because when the numbers are small, it feels inconsequential to do bookkeeping on your business, but that gets out of hand very, very quickly. And I've seen people in worlds of hurt because they didn't take care of those things immediately. So I would say start treating it like a business as soon as you decide it's a business, and that means separating the finances, making sure all of those kinds of things are in order, because it is so hard to play catch up on that stuff compared to if you just started from the beginning that way. For my recommendation would be try to do it without a bunch of debt and taking on all kinds of investments and those kinds of things to get yourself there. But just building that out from the very beginning, taking it seriously as a business, I think will serve you well, even if those numbers aren't something that feels worth doing all that for.
Yeah, that's really solid advice. I've seen many an agency owner during my mentoring years that had overlooked the tax man and were absolutely in a world of pain because of it. Always keep the tax man happy, keep him off your back, and yeah, it doesn't matter if you're taking in $100 or 100,000 or 1 million. Just keep on top of those finances.
Yeah,
100%.
and your gut will be so wrong on these kinds of things, and I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it a ton of times. We had somebody that actually joined our table group, and one thing we do inside of there is every month we have kind of a sheet we report on, and a lot of times it's like financial stuff in that sheet. How much profit or how much revenue did you bring in? How much were your expenses? What was your profit margin? Those kinds of things. I think to a lot of small business owners, they feel like that's probably overkill, like doing a P&L on their little agency. But it's amazing how many people have come in saying, oh, I've never done anything like this before, so I'm having to start from scratch and figuring out and realizing, holy crap, my expenses are 3 times what I thought they were. And it's just all these little piddly things that add up, and things that maybe you're paying for you weren't paying attention to, or just being a little bit too loose with purchasing things. And I think getting a handle on that from the very beginning and being really clear about what it costs to operate your business, what your margins are, all those kinds of things are so helpful. We had one person that came in who I think they hadn't tracked any of their expenses for several years, so that was really hard to start from the beginning. They're doing awesome now and reconciling every month, but that's really hard when you start so far behind the 8 ball, and you can do so much more when you're on top of all those numbers and you know what's going on in the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes the guesswork and the anxiety out of, okay, how profitable am I? Can I afford to do this? Should I scale back on that? And the amount of times I've seen people that have multiple versions of plugins, or certain softwares they don't use. They might have used one of them, 3 years ago, but have been paying for it ever since. It's yeah, audit your outgoings, people.
I do think
110%.
it will reduce anxiety, but it will also induce anxiety as well. And I hate that because that does happen in some of our meetings where people are forced to look at the numbers knowing they're not going to look good, and then they don't look good. But the thing is, those numbers aren't going away just because you don't look at them. You can't just be an ostrich and put your head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. The only way you can make those numbers better is to look at them, face them, make decisions based on them. So it's not always the most comfortable thing to do, but it's a very important part of it.
I think it's very, very uncomfortable if you're, kind of you're winging it almost, of like, yeah, no, sure, I have money in the bank account, everything's fine. But I think it's empowering to know exactly where you stand. And then you have a solid foundation, and you're not constantly worrying. You might not be in a very good position for short term, but long term, it'll make it a lot easier and a lot more comfortable for yourself. Yes, very good advice, Carl. Very good advice. And if people want to get in touch or connect with you, where can they find you?
The Admin Bar's website. If you're a website agency owner or involved in WordPress, you can go to theadminbar.com. If you're looking for help with a website, my agency, ogalweb.com, OGAL web.com. I'm sure you'll put a link somewhere. I don't have to spell it.
Mm-hmm.
Those two places are good. I would love to connect with you and see how I can help. So reach out if you'd like.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kyle. And thank you to our lovely listeners and viewers. We will see you in the next episode.